A very pleasant day wherever you're located. We greet you and we're very happy that you've joined us. This is Crossfire. I'm Rita Gadi together with Butch Valdes and Paglinawan. And of course, over the past several episodes, it's not only just getting interesting, but we are actually moving around the world and around our country so as to come up with what we can discuss. But right now, before we go into our program proper, on behalf of Crossfire, we'd like to offer our condolences to the British people and, of course, the family, the royal family, for the demise of Queen Elizabeth II. How this will affect us and the world? Well, many nuances that actually go with it. But before we go into how exactly we are related with the royal family and what effects it would have as far as the death of Queen Elizabeth is concerned, we'd also like to be very specific about a long time ago, a historical connection we had when Malaysia was still under the British rule. And, Singapore wanted to be independent of it. That's why you have the Singapore state, country state. But what happened to Sabah was, royalty gave it to Malaysia. So that was what it was in history. But we're not going to go into that because now there is a case between the Sultanate of Sulu and, of course, the British or
French.
The French, yes, that is it. But then again, as you've said, the whole of England is in mourning. Quite ironic that the Queen was in Scotland at the time when you have Scotland also wanting to be separate from the British Isles or the United Kingdom, as I would call it. Once upon a time, they were actually called Great Britain. Be that as it may, as we've said, we join the rest of the British people as far as the events will be unfolding. There will be a session, I think, today of King Charles III, and the coronation will be sometime next year. So, welcome, Sir Butch and Ado.
Right. We're glad to see you here again. Rita, we missed Rita last week.
Yes.
At di naman kami nahirapan, di ba, Rita? But I knew it would have been much more colorful if you were around like it is today.
Well, I had a deadline. I'm finishing a book first. We're trying to earn a living somewhere. So I'm finishing a book and my deadline was coming up. It's still not done, but I just had to finish several chapters at a time. Ado, how are you?
Well, surviving despite the new administration.
Despite or because of it?
I'm still trying to decipher how I would be able to position myself because so far we've been chasing coattails of people who don't seem to know where they're going, or at least we don't know where they're going.
Both of us are in media, Ado, and prior to the program, we had a short discussion of how important it is that the system of communication from the office of the president to the people and to the world is very vital. And I think that's exactly why we're asking, where are we going as far as that's concerned? So, sabi mo nga,
As a matter of fact, was it last week?
Yeah.
Our title was Povadis.
Yes, where are we going?
Povadis Philippines.
Exactly.
No, where are we going?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
the title, by the way, of our program is A Most Reliable Friend. And that's a quote from President Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr. We're having this because, as you've said, foreign affairs and relationship with other countries is most vital. But this particular quote refers to China. This was part of the speech when he was mentioning also how we balance our relationship with America. I think that is also one topic we have to discuss. Ano bang mangyayari sa EDCA, sa DFA, lahat yung mga yan. But a most reliable friend was referred rather to China. And over the past several days, yung ang pinag-uusapan natin, ano bang kinakatakot natin? Most reliable friend pa lang China. So saan tayo nagkakaroon ng problema dyan?
So, we have this mutual defense treaty
With America.
with the United States, which was signed in 1951. And what I've discovered lately is that whereas this was ratified by the Philippine Senate, it has not been ratified by the
US.
by the United States Senate. So what does that make of it? But another executive agreement as per today's standards. And this is being used by people who have been identified with the yellows in order to reopen some old wounds that we have with China. And particularly on the West Philippine Seas, Enrique Manalo, the
Secretary.
Secretary of Foreign Affairs, was boasting that we have filed 388 diplomatic protests against China
In the South China Sea.
in the South China
Because of the,
Sea.
yeah. Okay.
And I was saying, so what? So what? It could very well be 999.
Protests.
But we have a formula for resolving conflict. And this was clearly during the Duterte administration, bilateral negotiation. It's not yet clear in this administration how it's going to be. But we are trying to still read the ripples in the waters, because Albert Del Rosario, the former Foreign Affairs Secretary of Ngoy Aquino, BS Aquino, kung tawagin ko yan nun, ako nagbinyag ng BS dyan, which is nothing but benigno semiotic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not what you're thinking.
No, but I'm hearing the way you pronounce his name. It's, you know, there is a ngoy-ngoying that was
Yeah.
that was quite popular at the time. You know?
Let's go back a little dito sa mga comments na sinasabi ni Ado. There seems to be a little disconnect, no? Dito sa speech ni President Marcos Jr.
Yeah.
that China
It's a most
is a
reliable,
most reliable friend.
Yeah.
And yet, Secretary Manalo is so proud to say that we had already submitted 300 diplomat
388.
388 diplomatic protests against China.
Against a most
Against
reliable
a
friend.
most reliable friend. Either those protests don't really mean anything to us, to a president like Marcos, no?
Yeah.
Or
And to China, for that matter.
or to China, or the DFA, the Foreign Affairs Office, is just doing this thing as a cursory thing without really expecting any results. No? I am not promoting anything against China, no? But this language that we use, and not just Bongbong Marcos, no? Even the previous presidents, they always like to use language that puts us in the middle, neutral between China and the United States. And it has not gotten us anywhere. No? It has not gotten us anything. At some point, though, when Duterte cursed the United States, or more particularly Obama, no?
Yeah.
On his threat to withdraw the U.S. aid, no? He cursed the U.S. and he says, we are going to China and to Russia. And indeed we went, and we made a little something from it, right? Now, what I'm saying is, if you take a position like Duterte may have had at that particular time, something, there is a reaction coming from these parties, no?
Exactly, because he was in Moscow at the time when the Marawi incident
Oo.
happened.
Oh,
And
exactly.
and immediately
Maraming
there was a
dumating na
support. There was a support as far as ammunition is concerned.
Etong pagpara tayong natatakot na magagalit ang kano, magagalit. Ba't tayo ganyan? Bakit ganyan ang mindset
By
ng
the way,
leaders natin?
Butch,
Mm.
this statement was made before a Senate hearing where Jaime Marcos shut it down.
Ah,
And
okay.
Jaime Marcos said, why are we talking about what differentiates us from our neighbor? Why don't we talk about things like joint patrols? In other words, what Jaime was saying is, why are we talking about negative things when there are 1,000
Positive.
constructive and positive things that we can talk about insofar as our neighbor is concerned?
Very well said, yes.
Tama.
And you know what this idiotess from the Department of Justice said?
Meron
Her
pa ng
name-
female ang idiot, no? Ang female
Well,
idiot.
that's my
That's yeah. He could just coin the word. Incidentally, listen to it carefully. The male version is the idiot. The female version is the idiotess. Okay, that's a dictionary according to Adok Paglinawan. So anyway,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Ano ba ito? Si Carmen Pedrosa.
may she
And
rest in peace.
Belinda Conanan loves me for my colorful language now. That's how they call it.
Yeah.
But the name is Attorney Carla Isabel Kalugay. You see? And this
That's
is
name is she?
from the Department of Justice. And they said, we are not in favor of joint patrols because it might be misconstrued as legitimizing Chinese claims, no, and the positions of other countries. What? Hindi ko maintindihan kung ano ibig sabihin.
Patrol is a patrol and it's different from a claim.
Yeah.
So I think it is basic for people using words to understand the meaning of these words and definitions themselves. So, but nonetheless, the idea that was presented in the Senate of Senator Jaime is, I think, something which could be pursued insofar as what the troubles are, in quote. Because again, going back to what her brother has said, China is a most reliable friend. So there really should not be 388 protests that we're filing. As Ado said, these are like the ripples already in the waters. So that could be something that should be pursued, really.
I think those protests were made out of the instigation by very responsible media on the people that are supposed to have been affected by any kind of action. No? The small fisherman is always presented as the victim, no? and then if something happens to them or they go too near a Chinese vessel, they are hosed with water or something like that. So they feel this has to be done to make China look and demonize China.
Parang patintero, Ado. Pagka nag-cross ka ng line, then you start all over again. There seems to be demarcation lines or something. Kaya nagkakaroon ng protest. But nonetheless, as you've said, why should we have all of these problems in the South China Sea when China is a reliable friend?
That's
So
right.
we have to pursue that better.
Yeah, and in fact, we are in search of reliable partners.
Yes.
Diba? We should not be choosy. Diba? Because the absolute sovereign is the people of
The
the
people.
Philippines.
Exactly.
Right.
And it is to their interest, it is to the national interest that foreign affairs policies should be woven. And I'm saying the same thing for another reliable partner, which are the Russians. I was shocked because even before U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken made it to Manila to pay an audience with our new president, Biggs Romualdez, our ambassador to the U.S., no, our ambassador to the U.S., and a second cousin to the president, had already made inroads leading to the cancellation
Yes.
of the Russian supply of 16 Mi-17 Russian military transport helicopters to the armed forces, even at the risk of defaulting our 2 billion pesos down payment for the lame excuse, which was never validated, that the Philippines was fearing U.S. sanctions linked to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, to which Rod Katipunan reacted violently and asked, why are we always acting in deference or in anticipation of what Americans will do when we claim that we have an independent foreign policy?
Exactly. My goodness.
That is a very that claim, no, is an empty claim for many decades now, no, that we're supposed to be independent, and then we're supposed to be a democratic country, and we're supposed to be sovereign, no. That particular issue, no, I would think that our president, no, should have taken a stand on this, because amor proprio to no?
Oh.
Salita ng isang nation with another nation, tapos i-intervene itong mga iba, sasabihin, ipigil nyo.
As Ado was saying, it's a supposition. Baka sakaling magtampo, o
Oo.
baka sakaling magalit. My goodness, historic knowledge would prove to us that the father of our president now came into a kind of action at the height of the Cold War, while the Vietnam War was ongoing, and that was a surrogate war between the Soviet Union and America. And we befriended the Soviet Union at that time, in the 1970s, you see? So,
In fact,
that
we were
is-
one of the first to
Exactly.
recognize
yes,
the
the
Soviet Union
and open diplomatic relations
And
with the
open
Soviet Union. So,
diplomatic.
if at that time,
and the same with China.
yeah, when there was a war going on, and which we were 5 hours away, and actually, America was pushing us to be involved, but Marcos refused. So in the same manner, the uncle of this Secretary of Foreign Affairs should go back in history and
That's
learn
right.
from his own uncle that when a war was going on, he stood, and not only stood for, as you said, the national interest, but went to befriend the communist Soviets.
What I'm discerning here
Yeah.
is a public relations preemption
Yeah.
being staged by the Americans and our own ambassador to the U.S. because that cancellation will favor Chinook helicopters from the United States. Now, another thing, parang sunod-sunod eh.
Yeah.
When Blinken had his talking points, he was talking about an expanded pact, no? Assuming that we would do something about the Mutual Defense Treaty, or what most people do not seem to anticipate is we are 8 months to the deadline to give whether EDCA will be extended or not.
Not.
8 months to go. Wala pa tayong pag-aaral, wala pa tayong posisyon.
Okay.
So yung expanded pact na yun, I was discerning, was really for EDCA. But of course, ang sagot naman doon ni Bongbong Marcos is, we are always evolving. We are always in the process of evolution when it comes to our agreements.
Evolution should be something always from one state to another state for the betterment. Okay, so
And
Just-
it's based on one principle, that sovereign states in relation to other sovereign
Sovereign states,
states.
exactly. Yeah.
Hindi yung surrogate ka ng Amerikano. Hindi yung tuta ka ng kano. No? And that's what we always say. No?
Para lang,
At
yeah.
yung mga ibang, hindi lang yung leaders natin na they are in our
Territory.
bureaucracy.
Yeah.
No? They are in the Department of Justice. They are in Congress. They're in the cabinet. My goodness, yung cabinet, no? They are all surrogates. Surrogates of the US, yan mga yan.
Just so as, before we proceed, para lang maintindihan ano itong pinag-uusapan natin that is going to happen with an extension or with an abrogation, yung EDCA na yan. That's the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. And sabi nga natin, pati yung pagpirma niyan ay tagilid sapagkat we had Secretary of Defense signing and you had the Ambassador Philip Goldberg for the United States of America. Ambassador yon, pero secretary dito. Bakit hindi Secretary of Defense ng Amerika? But be that as it may, that EDCA has established 5 Philippine bases with American personnel, equipment, etc. in these 5 Philippine bases. Yan. At pagbabasahin ninyong mabuti ang EDCA na yan, parang ang kanilang justification ay for humanitarian reasons, kung sakali magkaroon ng disaster, andyan sila para tumulong. Nasa hulihan na lang yung, wala namang sinasabi dyan, defense of our country. Kasi alam din nila na to defend us with that EDCA, they have to go to their own Congress. Yan lang yung pinag-uusapan ngayon na EDCA na yan, na babalikan in 8 months' time.
Not only that, the moment you use defense of the Philippines, no, then you're going to have to admit that you
More
have
of an enemy.
you have military weaponry, no, in the places that they
Exactly.
have. They cannot admit that, so they're always going to say we are there to help them during earthquakes and other natural disasters.
Yung sinasabi mo, yung neither confirm or
Or
deny.
deny.
Ay, exactly.
Especially the presence of nuclear equipment.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh.
So yeah, 8
Now-
months to go.
Now that we're talking about reliability among our friends, ay bakit naman may mindset ang ating foreign affairs? And most of the people dito sa ating bansa, when we are talking about the condition reflects with the United States, which has a historical record of being the most unreliable ally since they literally abandoned others. Vietnam, no? And
Syria, Afghanistan, lahat.
Afghanistan,
They
and
abandoned us.
Ukraine, no? The Americans even sequestered some foreign countries' currency reserves deposited in the US. Na, yung pera ng Iraq, yung pera ng Iran, yung unang-una. Nung
Ginawa nila.
mawala si
At
ano.
yung oil
Oil.
wells ng Iran, pinasukan nila after, immediately after the war in Iran.
And as if we are oblivious that for the past 20 years, the United States has spent $7 trillion for wars all over, especially the Middle East. Yan ba ang gusto natin direksyon? Yan ba ang gusto natin kabarkada? Yan ba ang gusto natin
Malabo talaga.
BFF?
Yan sa Ukraine lang.
Best friend for him.
Yun sa Ukraine lang, last 2 weeks ago, nag-approve sila $1.6 billion in military equipment for Ukraine. 10% wala tayong maamoy nun dito sa friendly. You know what? Talaga nakakilabot every time they say. And they go to the microphone with our president and the rest of them waiting, and you've got somebody like Blinken. What is his standard line? His standard line is the Philippines and the US has long been historical friends, and we have been close to each other. and you are the closest people that we have in terms of relationship. Parang linoloko tayo eh, no? Close. Ang gusto nilang sabihin, pag-aari namin kayo. We own you, no? And your people have been educated by us to realize and to admit that we own you. This is the kind of mindset that they have put into our people. But there are still some like the two patriots I am with now, no, and still others, no, that do not like this. It goes against the grain, no.
Well, we've had that for a long time. The land of milk and honey. You can imagine the long lines queuing for visas to go to America, etc. Bakit kasi noon, ilang taon ba sila dito? 45 years that we were under the Governor General of the United States of America hanggang sa
40 years.
40 years.
Yes.
So, yun,
Sabi
kailangan.
nga ni Ambassador Pelaez, if I may just quickly, we were 377 years in the convent
Yeah.
and 40 years
In
in
Hollywood.
Hollywood.
And so where are we now? Exactly. So that's precisely what we're trying to decipher. Hindi tayo nagbago ng stand na yon, as Sir Butch was saying. We have this general statement, which is pretty safe, the way you say it, na we have long-standing friends, etc. But if we go back in time, like you had the Chinese sampans going against the black current coming here and trading. And as a matter of fact, practically all our little islands had Chinese cemeteries na doon natin nahukay yung mga porcelain as way back from the Ming and Tang dynasty and the Qing dynasty, which is one of the last of the dynasties. So you can imagine this old civilization of China long before any other foreign country has come. So if we speak of long-standing friends, ayan na, reliable friend, China is there. So bakit tayo magkakaroon ng posisyon na parang kung hindi kaibigan ng Amerika, ay kailangan hindi rin natin kaibigan. That's why I use that quotation of our president that China is an old reliable friend. Hawakan natin yon sapagkat sa mga nangyayari nga ngayon, our foreign affairs people, our ambassadors should realize that once upon a time, not too long ago, maybe 40 or 45 years ago, our president then, President Marcos, dared to go against the United States of America and befriending communist Soviet Union and communist China. So ano pang kinakatakot natin sa ngayon?
Kaya nga sinasabi ko, nahalata ko, na-discern ko, na nag-i-stage sila ng public relations preemptions. Kasi wala namang sinasabi ang Pangulo pa. No? At nahulog ako sa aking silya noong biglang si Ambassador Carlson, yan ang bago natin babae, no?
Yes.
Carlton,
Carlson, ang ambassador ho ng US naman dito sa atin, ay nag-welcome ng arrival ng US Coast Guard, no, at the port area for a scheduled joint search and rescue exercise with the Philippines equipment, yung mga assets natin sa Coast Guard. Ano ito sinasabi ni Atty. Carla Calugay that they're not in favor of joint patrols when mentioning China, because it might be misconstrued as legitimizing Chinese claims in the West Philippine Sea. But what is our business having joint patrols with the United States, whose mainland is 10,000
Miles away.
nautical miles away
Across
from
the
our
biggest,
region?
across the biggest body of water in the
Yeah,
planet.
Hindi ko maintindihan
No, because they will do this. They have the audacity to do this because they realize that our people are stupid. These people in the bureaucracy are stupid enough to write something like that. Because their mentality is that of a surrogate and what you call slave mentality.
Well, this
no?
goes back again, not just to the stupidity. I think even we could find other adjectives to describe what's happening, because you have one department in government that's another thing, which the other department goes against. One very clear example is even not just in the executive branch, but even in the political area, where you have one governor of a certain province saying, pwede na kayong maglakad na walang face mask. Sabi naman ng Department of Health, hindi, ganito lang yan. Then you have another mayor saying na it has to be according to the decision of the people themselves. So even such supposedly minor activities that will have to be undertaken nationwide ay hindi pa nagkakaintindihan. There is not one. Unity pa naman our president spoke of unity. That's exactly what we have to emphasize. Unity. So, yung mga taong nakapaligid dyan na nagpapalakad ng pamahalaan ngayon, sinasabi nga ni Ado, bakit ayaw nila na baka ma-antagonize ang Amerika kasi nag-aano tayo sa China? Saan ang unity dyan?
Kaya nga ako lalong naguguluhan. Dahil nung bumisita si Blinken dito, laban dyan sa ina-announce ninyong yan, nag-iwan siya ng $50 million worth of 23 million effective vaccines against COVID sa Pilipinas. Medical equipment, supplies, and face mask. Pag-graduate na tayo.
53 million? Yung unang dumating dito, nung nagkaroon tayo ng COVID, galing sa China, ilan yun?
Donasyon.
Donasyon. 500 million yun.
Kasi,
donated.
Nagkaroon pa ng konting controversy dyan, medyo pinagtakpan na lang ni Duterte. Kasi ang una nag-announce po as early as arriving in December, no? Ay itong si Locsin, no? Locsin. At itong si Babes Romualdez. Si Locsin was our Foreign Affairs Secretary. Na darating na raw yung mga American vaccines by December of 2019, no? And yet, of 2020 pala, I'm sorry. And yet, ano nangyari? We had to wait until March 1 dahil wala hong dumarating na hindi na-anticipate nito mga American boys na ito. Ay siyempre, uunahin muna ng US. Yung mga citizens nila, mag-hoard muna sila bago sila magpadala sa ibang bansa.
Pero huwag tayong malihis, no? Sa topic dito sa gusto ko itong kay binuksan ni Rita, no? I just want to make one comment about this thing. Si Fauci, I think there are many Americans now that are ready to lynch him, no? And are just waiting until he finally resigns. No? Because he has already announced his retirement. No? And the same thing with Pfizer, Moderna, and the rest of them. There are many cases now being prepared, no? Because the contention of a good number of the medical practitioners, doctors, and scientists, no, claim that the vaccines, no, are actually promoting disabilities and death. No?
Yung Moderna, lalo na,
right.
Myocarditis.
Yeah, but that is baka kasi alam mo yung YouTube ayaw nitong vaccine issue. Kaya balik muna tayo dito kay Bongbong, no? Now, the reason we're talking about this, Rita, correct me if I'm wrong, is because there is now an impending visit or attendance of the President sa United Nations. Maybe 3 weeks from now?
September 20, they say.
Okay. Now, everybody's wondering what he's going to say there. Is he going to take up the issue on the
South
West
China
Philippine
Sea?
Sea, or the EKJ, or the what's this?
Or we can just make presumptions after
Right.
we don't know
What-
exactly what he's going to talk about, but there could be a lot of messages that we'll be receiving, and perhaps even in this program we could be discussing what would we want him to say,
That's right.
what would we anticipate as far as something that could be of benefit not just for the country but for the world, because that is a world assembly established. Yan ang unity niya. You see,
Yes.
United Nations organization, the United Nations General Assembly. It fits exactly the battle cry of his campaign. Unity in the world, precisely. His father started this by opening the Iron Curtain, by opening the bamboo curtain, by lifting the veils of the Middle East and all of that. So, if he follows suit as far as what his father has done, then perhaps, as you said, Sir Butch, there could be something innovative that he would be presenting. Hindi lang yung general statements, but as you said, the South China Sea, what's happening in Taiwan, and of course, tangentially, the effects of Ukraine and Russia, but that's a little far off. But that's exactly it. Foreign policy yan eh. Kasi United Nations yan. He's calling on the world. I am here from this country in Asia, but my country is strategically located and is now, as your own president in America said, the pivot.
Yeah.
Kaya,
To Asia.
yeah, parang revolving door. Papunta kayo ng Asia, dadaan kayo dito, papunta kayo sa Amerika, dito rin kayo, etc. So, that
Alam mo
is what
si
we expect. Yeah.
President Bush, the younger Bush, no, in one speech he said, if you're not our friend, then you're our enemy. Or if you're not with us, then you're against us. No? Ganyan ang kanyang claim, no? Kanyang mindset. No? And this I'm sure was a message to all other nations.
And that's how they behaved. That's
Yeah.
exactly how they have behaved.
That's exactly how
But let me sidebar a little bit
Oo.
dito sa event na ito ng UN. Dahil, again, ang discernment ko, part na rin ito ng public relations campaign ng mga amboys. No? Why? According to Romualdez,
Again.
several heads of states have asked for meeting with Marcos, who may mention the West Philippine Sea and the 2016 arbitral ruling. Ngayon, ito ang tanong ko.
Whatever.
Bakit siya? Ang nag-announce niyan, UN yan. Meron na tayong si Antonio Manuel Lagdamel na pinirmahan na ni Marcos Jr., yung kanyang appointment as permanent representative
To the
of the
United
Philippines to the United Nations. No? At sinigundahan pa itong announcement ni Romualdez, ambassador natin sa US, no? Ng Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo, because nagsisik ng clarification yung mga congressmen, no? Seeking clarification on how the new Marcos, katulad nga na sinasabi niyo, would handle the country's dispute with China in the South China Sea. Alam mo, sabi, we will not let China forget about the West Philippine Sea issue. Bakit tayo nandoon? Bakit? At saka bakit
Saka ba
yung mga
si Ben
nag-ano?
Romualdez?
We will not forget.
Ano
Kasasabi
siya?
lang nung kanyang boss.
Spokesman siya ng kano. Yung ba lumalabas?
Kasasabi lang ng kanyang boss na si China is the most reliable friend. Ano ba yan? That's exactly why we say, may sinasabi yung isa, may sinasabi yung isa, parang hindi nagkakatugma. Unity again should be, yan ang kailangan umiral kasi yan na nga yung kanilang campaign, rallying cry. So anyway, as Ado was saying, kung ilalabas man yan sa, as we said, we cannot anticipate, we cannot presume, but we can hope that there would be a better treatment of the issues that are, sabi mo nga, public relations lang ang lumalabas dyan. But if there is this parang nililigawan or merong attempt na magsalita in favor of what America would want sa United Nations. Pero on the other hand, meron din namang ginagawa na medyo siraan din yung pagpunta ni President Marcos Jr. sa Amerika.
Oh, yeah,
Kasi
pero
yan,
yan.
magpapalabas sila ng mga victims of martial law, etc. and all. Hahalongkatin na naman yung nangyaring, 50 years ago during the administration of his father, ilalabas yung mga torture, etc. and all of this. So, ano yun? So you could see, sabi nga ni Ado, merong public relations on either side para makita natin where it could go. Parang merong pressure, parang ano. So that is where it's not a balancing act, as Sir Butch said. You should not be a balancing act. You should have a firm stand.
Yeah,
Yan.
it's about time. If we look at the way the world is going now, no, it's about time we really took a position because our neutrality is not going to save us. No? Just by announcing that you are a friend to all and an enemy of none may not stop the missiles of the U.S. from the Philippines being sent to China and China's missiles sent to us. And this could be nuclear. No? Your neutrality doesn't mean anything to them.
By the way, sige, Butch.
But I said, if we take a stand for, and together with many other nations that are worried about what is going on in the world now, because there is an ongoing economic collapse and there is a heightened threat of
A big
conflict,
war. Yeah.
no, a big war, which could very well be nuclear. No, we are all in gritting our teeth, no, and waiting that what
would
can
not
we do, no.
That it would not happen.
Now all of these nations, which is a majority, no, can get together, and what I would like to see is for some lightning of leadership to hit our president so that he stands up
to rally the
all
world,
of these
yeah.
nations,
Yeah. in the world,
This
in
is
fact,
very
yeah.
important.
to rally all of these nations in the same way they had organized themselves before, the non-aligned
Yeah.
movement of nations
In Bandung. Yeah.
in Bandung, Indonesia, and formalized in Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
Over 120 countries got together. If you will remember, at that time, ang magkalaban, Amerika tsaka Soviet Union. Tapos pinagtatag-o-war nila tayo. Ngayon, meron din ganyan. Pero pwede pa rin in the same principle.
Very good.
And
Yes.
especially very, very important, Butch, because yesterday,
No?
North Korea passed a law
No?
that they are now have become a nation that will be capable of a preemptive strike,
Wow.
Ala.
and that this law prohibits any denuclearization of North Korea.
Ala.
Wow.
So, kahapon lang yan, Butch. Nabasa ko lang yung update ngayong afternoon. That's how latest it is, no?
My goodness.
So
That
we're
is,
not
yeah.
even talking about
Yeah.
yung relations natin with being
Yeah.
in danger with China na our
Yeah.
EDCA bases might be used as a magnet for any retaliation in case the Americans use it.
Yeah.
But eto na si Kulokoy.
Si Kim Jong-un. Yeah.
Kim Jong-un. At bagong-bago yan. Bagong-bago
Yeah,
yan.
but that is very sad, because if you just try to connect the dots, for instance, you had an American president,
Mhm.
President Trump, Donald Trump, who crossed that 38 parallel line and befriended Kim Jong-un, and they even signed some kind of a memorandum of understanding or whatever
Right.
you would call it,
Mhm.
that North Korea would denuclearize. In fact, immediately after the signing of that agreement, sinira yung mga testing grounds nila to prove the sincerity of North Korea. And that was an American president that had the courage to do that. And for ako, talagang pinalakpakan ko yan. Because can you imagine, Kung magkamali yung lipad ng nuclear nila bago pumasok sa San Francisco, baka dito pa yung bumagsak. But that was already what Trump did, an American president for that matter. Now what they're trying to do, they're trying to destroy Trump.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you see the movement. Yan ang sinasabi ko.
But-
Connect the dots.
But Rita,
Yeah.
remember, in the Second World War, Japan did not bomb the U.S. mainland. It bombed Pearl Harbor and the Philippines. Ha? Bakit nakakalimutan ninyo?
Exactly. The co-prosperity sphere, precisely that. Kasi, oh my goodness.
So bigla naging second class yung
Pero
Taiwan
yung-
issue tsaka yung West Philippines.
Because of this-
Ito si Kim Jong-un na naman.
Nagsalita.
Pero yung Philippines, kasi may base militar dito yung Kano.
Yun.
May
Hindi
base
ba?
militar.
Yeah, remember this. There was a time, there were only 2 military bases of America in our country, Clark Air Base and the Subic Naval Base. Now there are 5 in our Philippine bases where you have American personnel, equipment, etc. installed. Basahin niyo yung EDCA, mag-google ninyo yan. Para mangilabot kayo.
Grabe
Kasi-
talaga yung pag-iisip ng mga Pinoy.
Kasi,
No?
galit kayo sa
Worse
China.
worse
Pero
than
tingnan ninyo kung
prostitutes.
andito sa loob ng ating bansa na nakakatakot. Sapagkat, sino bang enemy natin na kailangan natin na merong mga, anyway, so, mahaba pang usapan talaga yun.
Yeah.
Well, ang sabi ni U.S. Secretary Defense Lloyd Austin III, no relation to Benigno Simeon Aquino III at Tirso Cruz III.
And Charles III.
Also recently, the U.S. commitment to the Philippines is ironclad, and that the Mutual Defense Treaty commitments extend to Philippine Armed Forces, public vessels, and aircraft in the South China Sea. Ang hindi niya sinasabi is it becomes operational only in case of an attack by a foreign country.
Yeah.
Anong foreign country yan?
Who will attack us? Exactly, di ba?
I am sure China will not start an attack on the Philippines. They will not bomb the bridges that they are building here and the projects that they are constructing and so far as our infrastructure development is
And
concerned.
You know, all
it is
of
not in
this-
their history. It is not in the history of China that they will attack another
Exactly.
country. They have been attacked.
All of these
Yeah.
hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 years, they have never established any kind of military base in the Philippines. Kung yung Taiwan which is theirs, no? They have not put a military base in Taiwan, no? At the time that they could have, no?
And the Chinese, the mainland Chinese, will never bomb Taiwan because
it is there.
Chinese pa din yun.
And they're in business together, just in case we forgot that. I mean,
Very much.
Hindi.
They're one
Di ba
country.
napakita tayo ng mapa dito?
yes, yes.
Yung Center for New American Security na sila ang gumawa ng war games.
Yeah, yeah.
Mga Amerikano ang gumawa ng war games. Binomba ng 7 beses in retaliation, no? Ang Japan, especially the Cadena Air Base, which
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
biggest establishment of the U.S. Armed Forces
In Japan.
in the Asia Pacific.
Oo.
Ha? Isa sa Hawaii, 2 sa Guam, at isa sa Pilipinas. No? No. Pero, nada. Niet. Ha? Walay. Sa Taiwan.
Oo.
Walang bombang lalat sa Taiwan coming from China.
Yeah.
You can rest assured that.
Ang pinag-uusapan po natin, dahilan nga sa pamagat ng ating palatuntunan sa Crossfire, nakita mo kami tatlo nagko-Crossfire na talaga dito, is a most reliable friend. Kaya wag na tayong matakot sa mga pinagsasasabi nga, yung sinasabi nga ni Ado, this public relations thing or media, etc. Sapagkat kung talagang babalikan natin ang kasaysayan ng mundo, kung bakit na-establish ang United Nations is for peace, precisely. To unite the countries of the world. Pero since then, ilang gera na ang pumutok. At sino nagsimula nitong mga gerang ito? So again, historically, you could see who intervenes in other countries kung ayaw nila yung pinuno doon, kung ayaw nila yung sistema ng gobyerno doon. This platitude of democracy being the rallying cry, naalala ninyo yung init ng ulo ni Johnson na kaya sila nasa Vietnam kasi kailangan turuan sila ng democratic way of life. My goodness! Umatras nga sila after how many, more than a decade as a matter of fact. Afghanistan, ganyan din ang ginawa. Syria, Iraq, Iran, lahat yung mga yan. Nonetheless, what we're trying to say is, wag na tayong matakot sa sarili nating shadow sapagkat ginagawa natin yung mga kwento na yan. But again, at this particular stage, our president will be traveling to the United States of America to address the United Nations General Assembly. That's a regular event. Every September, heads of state are invited to speak.
Yeah.
Kaya yung pinag-uusapan natin dito, ano ang gusto nating maririnig na sasabihin niya doon? Sir Butch was saying that perhaps there could be enough strength in his words to be able to organize or to gather together the countries of the world. Ayaw kong sabihin the little countries, pero yung mga countries na wala sa National Security Council ng United Nations, magsama-sama at manindigan. That's what's important. Manindigan at sabihin, we are going to be non-aligned, meaning wala na sana yung hidwaan na yan. That's precisely what we're saying. Pero nakikita nyo the tentacles of American power moving into our government and our peace. Hindi lang ngayon to. This has been from Sir Butch, kailan pa ito? Well, 40 years ago of American occupation hanggang sa kasalukuyan. That's exactly what's happening.
And yun lang, it could not come if the president is going to say something to promote a non-aligned movement of nations. No? If he does it now, it could not have come at a more critical time. Because we may not, the way things are going, and if you know how countries are now preparing, and like North Korea, it's nuclear and so on and so forth, no? We may not have time anymore to talk about these things. No? Because these events might even overtake us. No? It is very, very critical now. So we hope the president realizes this.
I wish I could join your enthusiasm and positivity
And optimism.
and optimism dyan sa UN na yan because I will take a devil's advocate viewpoint. I am not even recommending that he goes to New York to address the United Nations. I would like him to make it clear first dito mismo sa bansa natin ano ba talaga ang direksyon. Co-bodies, ika na. Ayusin mo muna itong sarili mong bahay, Bongbong, bago ka pumunta dyan. Kasi hindi naman nila inaalis yung contempt charge sa'yo for which there is a warrant for your arrest in the United States. So can you assure your 31 million Filipinos na makakabalik ka pa dito? Baka mamaya ang mangyari sa'yo dyan, magaya ka sa tatay mo na kinidnap ng mga Amerikano at bago nakabalik sa Pilipinas ay medyo matagal-tagal. Well, ako, hindi ako natatakot dyan dahil si Sara Duterte, may tiwala ako na papalit sa'yo. Ikaw, saan ka dadamputin? Yun lamang ang aking tinatapon sa discussion table.
Okay.
No? Dahil baka naman sinabi na tayong tatlo rito, hindi man lang pinigilan. Hindi man lang in-adviser to the contrary. Kaya I'm just playing the dissenting book.
Exactly. That's what Crossfire is all about. Exactly. Nagpipitik-pitikan, dumadaplis kung saan ang matamaan, etc. and all of this. But as Ado was saying, mahalagang tingnan yan. Sapagkat kung talagang meron silang, ang mga Amerikano, kung meron silang gustong gawin, kayang-kaya nila yan. as Ado was saying, it is true that there were assurances given by other American officials na nagtumunta na dito na, no, we're not going to issue that contempt order, you have immunity, etc. Pero tandaan, President Marcos had immunity. Pero they did not recognize that, kinasuhan pa rin siya. So, many things.
Extraordinary and plenipotentiary yan. Kinitap pa rin.
Exactly. So, tama rin si Ado na maghunos dili. Pag-aralang mabuti. Kung talagang, yeah. Sapagkat yung United Nations General Assembly is a regular annual affair. At kung ano man ang, at sabi nga, ang kinakailangan harapin dito sa ating bansa, unahin. We understand that several speeches already in the Senate have come out. It is not just a matter on the budget deliberations, pero hawak nga ng ating Pangulo ngayon ang agrikultura. Isa yan sa pinakamahalagang priority na kailangan talagang asikasuhin. Ngayon, pag sinasabi nga na priority din ang pumunta sa United Nations, tingnan natin kung anong kabutihan ang ating mapapala dyan. Exactly. And Sir Butch has already recommended that if he could stand firm on the grounds of aligning non-aligned countries so that we can be at least on the forefront. Sapagkat yung mga gera-gera na nangyayari na yan are, you know, events that we have absolutely no control, but events that we can, in a manner of speaking, sabi nga ni Ado, na pagka nagsalita yung ating leadership dito, ay makikinig naman ang buong mundo dyan. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Let's water the messages.
Anyway, we have Annie Corbe. We're reading the messages now. We love Marcos noon pa man kasi nakita ko palakad ni Pedro Marcos. Freddy Oredina, Singapore was carved out of Malaysia to be financial hub of the British Empire. Just be critical of cabinet secretaries appointed by PBN. We are not criticizing. We are, tama yung salitang sinabi mo. Critical meaning that pinapansin para mas mahusay pa ang kanilang serbisyo sa atin. Yeng, hello Ma'am Rita watching from Hong Kong. Hello also to the two gentlemen. Uy, nako, yung dalawang gwapong kasama ko dito. Richie 33, God bless you po sa inyong Ma'am Rita. And Sirs, John Jagger, watching from Hong Kong, Vicente Sini, always a joy to listen to my favorite. Ayan. Okay, so from Rwanda ang apelido niya, Jovelyn Aniban, hello, watching from Hong Kong, good evening, Madam Rita Naku. Panay ang batin, you really missed me because I wasn't here last week. Okay, Ado Paglinawan, good evening sa inyo lahat. Jerry Chong, Puerto Rico, also saying their USA stayed on papers but can't travel to America. Naku po, talaga. Ang hirap pagka nako-colonize, ano po, kanya talagang, yan ang malungkot. No allotment from US government every years. Yan, itong Puerto Rico. Leng Mariano, I've waited for the return of a Marcos. So have we all in a way. That is why we're standing firm on the kind of decisions that the new president will be making. Victoria Eda, good day. Hi, Ma'am Rita. And company, stay safe. Thank you very much. From Milan, Italy. Oy. Carol Villanueva, hello from Oregon State. Yes. Good luck, Ilas. Good evening po. Ms. Rita, Mr. Valdes, Mr. Paglinawan, thank you for continue to educate us. Hello po, Ma'am Rita. I can't quite decipher yung kanyang writing doon. Amalia Samala, good afternoon po. And Sir Ado. Okay, thank you very much for all your messages and for listening to us. We will be tackling other issues in the forthcoming programs that we have. But right now, whatever you have heard on Crossfire, try to analyze this carefully because this is for the benefit of all of us. Kung kami nagdadaldal dito at nagsasalita, marami pong research ang talagang binuhos dito. Sir Butch has a whole library inside between his ears as far as that's concerned. Ado has, my goodness, how many books? 5, 7 books already written. Kaya yung mga ako po sa kadaldalan lang. But of course, the experience we have had covering one of the best presidents whose birthday is tomorrow, by the way, President Ferdinand Edralin Marcos. That is enough guidance for me to be able to speak of certain important actions that were taken then, which can be utilized today as where we stand as far as foreign policy is concerned. And of course, many other things like domestic problems, agriculture, etc. So yan po, You can watch us on YouTube, on Facebook, and Twitter, and all the other social media outlets. Maganda pong if you could share this so that more people could be listening in. So thank you very much for having joined us. Thank you, Ado. Thank you, Sir Butch. And this is Rita Gadi for Crossfire.